Good afternoon and welcome to the Takeup. Today we have episode 241 Long Beach Wrap Up Trends, Techniques, and Topics. Hey folks, welcome back to the Takeup after a little bit of a break here in this early kind of January, early February time as we get done with the first trade show of the season. Glad to have you guys back here. Glad to talk about the kind of takeaways from our friends at Impressions Expo and all the folks that I got to teach with and meet and hang out with. So it should be some good stuff to talk about, some interesting topics, probably a little bit of a shorter show, but some interesting stuff as far as what I saw there, what the takeaways were, what the techniques were that were kind of popping off, how people were reacting to things, the classes that we taught, and what do I expect to go forward from that in 2026 and coming up into the trade show season. You guys know that we kind of have more trade shows in the spring, and then we kind of graduate through the year. Then we have a couple more at the end of the year that I tend to do. Well, I'm going to talk to you about what's going on there and what the next plans are as far as trade shows, education, and the reception of what we did in Long Beach at January. So don't get me wrong, we're going to have more stuff coming up. Next week is actually a reunion of sorts for some of the folks who were at the trade show. So we're going to talk about thread talks. We're going to get into that real quick, the roundtable discussions and the stuff that happened there. But we're going to get back on technique. You're going to see more of that coming up for me. So don't worry. I know not everybody is fully into the trade show experience, the commercial stuff. We are going to be getting back to technique and education as well. But for today, we're just going to go ahead and discuss what was going on in Long Beach. I'm going to give you some concepts that are there, show you a couple of fun pictures, and just give you a little bit of the flavor of what happened there and what I noticed as far as someone who's been to these shows for many years and been teaching at these shows now going on, getting closer and closer to my decade of education at these shows in specific. So like I said, hopefully it's something that resonates with you. You'll get to see some folks on screen and off. You'll get to talk about some things, and hopefully you'll get a feeling for what's going on. Because really, much as I do love all the other shows, and frankly, sometimes it's hard to miss some of the shows I don't go to anymore. This is the show. If you're going to pick one show that you absolutely must do once in your life for people who are decorators, you're in the apparel decoration space, I have a hard time not saying go to Impressions Expo Long Beach. Don't get me wrong. Printing United was awesome for the more general print world. I love the regional DAX shows. You get a lot of hand holding and direct contact. So I love going to those shows too. Those are fantastic. I used to teach those for years. I have not been in the previous year. But if I have to give you like, this is one show, go see it. It's the spectacle. It's the newest stuff launching, and it's everything all in one room for apparel decorators, whether you are a printer or an embroiderer of any stripe. Impressions Expo Long Beach is hard to argue with, especially as it is kind of the kickoff to the year where a lot of people tend to do their launches. Now, don't get me wrong, big stuff happening. And like I said, last year did Printing United, and I was very impressed with everything going on there. So that's another strong contender, but that one has so much more that is beyond the scope of apparel decorations. I tend to say if you are commercial embroiderer, commercial printer in the world of apparel, Impressions Expo Long Beach, really hard to argue with as like the premier show to go to. So like I said, that's what we're doing today. Hopefully that's something you guys want to kind of converse about, that you're interested in. I would love to have any questions. If you have questions about what was there, how the classes went, what you thought my takeaways were, what you think I think you shouldn't miss, like what were the absolute critical things to pick up at the show. I'm very happy to answer all those questions and to get derailed. If you have other questions that are on the topic or around the topic of embroidery and trends and what's going on right now, I would absolutely love to hear those, including stuff you want to see from me as we get on into the rest of what's happening for 2026. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and say hi to the folks who are here. You guys know that I like to go live with everybody. If you are a part of the replay squad, you don't want to see everybody go, fast forward, head on until you see the banner again. Once the banner is back up, you know that we are done chatting. But until then, I'm going to say hi to everybody who's here. First, we have Frank from out in the UK. Thank you, Frank, for showing up and saying good evening. Happy to see you here. We've got Barb from Minnesota Custom Made saying good afternoon, everyone from North Central Minnesota. Good afternoon to you. Got Gail from Kingsbury Crafts coming in saying hello, Eric. Well, hello, Gail. Happy to see you here as well. And everybody's saying hi to each other. Love to see that. We've got Marta from Cafe Creations coming in and saying hello from Texas, where it was freezing. It's about 80 degrees out. Yeah, we are in PA where I am now. Big difference from what I did was the big Southwestern tour. I will tell you guys about that in a little bit. Went to Long Beach, spent some time at what I will lovingly call the compound, hanging out with a creator of Embrilliance, Brian Bailey, and talking about plans for Embrilliance for the rest of the year, which I am not going to tell you about because those things you got to find out when we launch them. But had a kind of Southwestern tour where I got to go down there, be in Long Beach, go to Arizona, then stop over in my hometown of Albuquerque, New Mexico before I headed back up here. And now up here in northeastern Pennsylvania, I am absolutely frozen, and we are just stuck behind mass amounts of snow. But hey, that's the way that works, folks. But yeah, Miss Thready says, "Hi, all. Looking forward to hearing what's up. Yeah, happy to share that stuff. Should be cool." And we've got Bonnie coming in from West Michigan. Hi, Bonnie. Happy to have you here. And Justin, hey Justin, how's it going, man? Justin, who one of the awesome educators who I'll be talking about shortly on the Technique Toolkit and the Thread Talks, which boy, I cannot wait to tell you guys about the Thread Talk roundtables. That was massive, and we're going to discuss that in a second. Um, Always an awesome educator. You guys know him from Embroidery Nerds. You guys know him from his own career of incredible embroidery, and he taught all about not only commercial looks with us, but 3D foam on caps at par excellence. So yeah, check out Justin's stuff. Always worthwhile to listen to and check out and see. So yeah, thank you for showing up there, Justin, and thank you for being here and being at the show. It's fantastic to see you and get to hang out. So we've got a couple more people saying hi to each other and smiling. Love to see you guys talking to each other. It's nice. And then we have Ruth Alice saying, "I am in Northeast Pennsylvania also." Hey, cool. Yeah, like I said, I'm a new transplant. I won't be here for very long, but currently here up here in Northeast Pennsylvania. It's very new for me as a desert person from the mountains to be up here in the hills of Northeastern PA. But hey, uh, interesting new experiences all around. Got to tell you that for sure. Including my first time having to shovel snow reliably. I know everybody's like, "Oh, poor you," but very different world than in the high desert. Even though we do get snow, we do get cold. We don't get this much this frequently. And we also have Annette showing up from North NSW Australia. I will not say it incorrectly, so tell me how to correctly tell everybody about where you're at. First time live for you. Glad to see you there. New South Wales. Might have said it wrong. Might be wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. I have a lot of Australian friends and should know better, and I don't. So sorry. Thank you for showing up from down under. Appreciate it. I'm sure you love hearing that one too. And we have everybody still talking. Ruth is saying, "Cool, very cold right now." We got Mimi coming in from Florida, and we've got DJ Kev. Glad to see you in here from North Carolina. Still cold. Yeah, no. I'm feeling it, man. Freezing up here. It is hard to leave like I said, the American Southwest, which when I got there, and admittedly, I am such a person who is from that place. I got to see a good friend of my father's. I was down there seeing my dad, and he jumped on me immediately and said, "How's it feel to be back in God's country?" And I was like, "Oh man, don't say that. I do love it down there." So it was hard to come back up to cold PA. And hey, beautiful stuff happening in PA, but very cold, very different vibe from New Mexico. All right, folks, I'll quit my snow complaining. All you guys who are buried in snow all the time would love to tell me to knock it off, and I agree. It's beautiful up here, and I have never seen quite the same sights. But let's get back into this. Let's talk about Impressions Expo Long Beach. That's what we're here for, right? We're here to talk about what went on, what did we see, what did we do, how's it working, and really, it is absolutely a wonderful place. By the way, I got to say hi to one more person because she was there, and it was awesome to get to see you. Cindy King saying, "Hi, everyone working out in the screen printing but listening. Thank you for being there. I'll probably be sharing pictures with you. I also managed to get some funny pictures. We got some pictures taken together, and I started mean mugging the camera because Joe was behind it, and I was goofing off. So now there are pictures of me looking particularly stern while standing next to Cindy. So just so you guys know, I wasn't mad at Cindy or at Joe, but I was making fun of Joe and mean mugging him from behind the camera because, hey, good friend of ours, Joe Kramer, also on the Technique Toolkit. Hard not to make fun and have fun while we were hanging out. And of course, Katie Wilbin, who you guys have seen on the show and on the Thread Break before when we do kind of the interview shows. But it was really pretty fantastic. The show in general, everything that was going on there, all the education, everything was really quite good. So the first thing to just say about everything before I go too far, that show was fantastic. Impressions Expo Long Beach was fantastic, absolutely great. And I also met a very good friend of mine who I've known for some time, worked with. I got to meet Lisa Shaw there, which was something we'll talk about as well. So if you guys are in Brilliance heads, which a lot of you are, You know the immense talent of Lisa Shaw, and she was there, and not as an educator, just being there herself and experiencing the show. And it was fantastic to get to finally meet her in person. All these years we worked together, like 7 years, and I never got to meet her until now. So that was awesome. But yeah, as Cindy says, so sad, had to leave the show early. Yeah, this was a show to stay for the whole thing if you could. There really was quite a lot going on, and though I will say some people were asking me about the technology there, um, and kind of saying, "Hey, what was the big new crazy thing?" It was hard for me to just jump on and say there was something massively innovative that I was thinking had never come around before, that I'd never seen. But at the same time, there was a lot going on at the show that was interesting, and certainly, if not the most innovative evolutionary stuff that you've ever seen, there were lots of interesting things happening, and certainly worthwhile, right? Certainly some worthwhile stuff going on. And absolutely the trends that I was seeing really continuing on from what happened at Printing United, especially as we're talking about industry trends. A lot of that was similar, but there was a lot there to take in, especially as it comes to who was displaying, how much stuff was there, what kind of things were there, who were the players in the booths, and what was being talked about. Very interesting stuff, and certainly telling about the kind of current climate that we're living in, right? So, like I said, still saw all the great players, still saw the stuff that you should expect there, but interesting kind of how that went on. So let's go ahead and say hi to the last couple of people, and then we'll get into it. Just like to say hi to everybody, especially since we've been off for a while. Heidi's here saying hi all. Hi, Heidi. And then yeah, Cindy says had to leave early from the stupid weather. Yeah, all of us were having to bail out. A lot of folks left early or left on the night before the show closed because people were desperately trying to get ahead of the giant winter storm that was taking everybody out. My poor wife, who's here doing her medical residency up here, was like constantly scraping snow and having to dig herself out to get to the hospital, and I felt terrible because I was off in the Southwest having a good old time, but at the same time, off on the coast and off in the Southwest doing that. Certainly, there's work to be done, but I'll say whether it's brainstorming and working with Mr. Brian Bailey, or whether it's teaching at the shows, it is still such a wonderful time. I felt bad. My poor wife was over here just like dinging herself out of the hip deep snow for her. So yeah, rough times, but still. And Cindy says they didn't get home till Monday morning. Yeah. People were leaving early, leaving on Saturday and barely getting out. And this is Cindy going to Texas from Long Beach. That's how bad that weather got and how bad the flying got. But let's get into it, right? So Impressions Expo Long Beach. What are the big takeaways for me? Number one, let me talk about what we did there, what we were all doing there, and kind of give you some concepts there aside from all the other stuff we're going to talk about on the floor. Let's just give you the educational stuff real quick, because we started this out, and especially I started this out with my compatriots in the Technique Toolkit. So the Technique Toolkit was on the workshop day. If you guys don't know about the shows, there is a workshop day with long classes that happens before the rest of the show. So we are eventually going to get to talking about the next show coming up from Impressions, which is Atlantic City. So if you are on the eastern part of the U.S., then you're probably very interested in what's going on there. Well, they also are going to have that workshop day, so do get ready for that. One day before these scheduled days that they show on the calendars, there is a workshop day. So if you want to be there for the big workshops, you actually need to be there early, almost like 2 days early, because they start on the morning of the day before the trade show opens. So I just want to make that clear. Not everybody knew that, and some people were a little concerned about it. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to release this before we go any further, because we have a question. Heidi's asking me, "Are you going to Atlantic City?" And I have not for years. I am this year. So yes, I will release more of that now. I'm still inking that right now. It is a driver for me where I have not had a show be a driving show for a very long time. I am fully intending to go to Atlantic City this year. It should be short stop, only have a couple classes going on, and it is a smaller show than Long Beach. I am going to tell you guys. So if you're not used to it, if you haven't been there, it is a smaller show than Long Beach. But I do intend to go to Atlantic City in late March. So if you have not gotten to see me teach and you've been on the East Coast begging me to go, I had it impressed on me by quite a few of you that you would like me to go to Atlantic City. And yes, the plans are that Atlantic City is a go, and I do have classes assigned. So that means, like I said, I'm still inking the last of it. There may be more classes than are currently assigned, But yes, you should be seeing me at Impressions Expo Atlantic City. So for more details on that, and we're going to get into that at the end of the show, you can always go to impressionsexpo.com, go to events, click on Atlantic City. You're going to see the conference schedule and the speakers. We're still working on a little bit of the lineup because not all of us who are at the show in Long Beach can be in Atlantic City. And so we're looking at that and we're being asked to fill in and stuff like that. So I can't tell you everything that's going to happen yet. I will say that we are currently listed. We are going to be there. I know a couple of things that I'm teaching. I have a couple more that probably are going to be taught if I can get everything worked out correctly. But that is the concept. So if you've been waiting for me to show up on the East Coast, this is it. I'm coming. I will be at Impressions Expo, Atlantic City. That's the concept. At least, like I said, now that I'm up here, I'm up in PA for a little while. Next couple of years, the likelihood of me being there is as high as it's ever going to be. And this year, I am certainly planning on getting that done, as I kind of promised the folks on the East Coast, and I promised the Impressions Expo folks that I would make that an intention this year to get out to Atlantic City. So yes, that's happening. So yeah, like I said, hopefully that's something you guys are interested in. If you are, please come by, give us reviews, tell them what you want, because that's how we get more of this. And I'm actually going to talk about that again in relation to Impressions Expo Long Beach. So let's get back into that. First thing I want to share with you guys, we did the technique toolkit. So that was awesome. So you're talking about, this is me, this is Joe Kramer, this is Just Armenta, and Katie Woodman talking all about crafting retail-worthy corporate looks. I'm going to go ahead and I'll throw up my slides and play through a few of those. That's not something I'm going to be, consistently sharing necessarily, but I am not going to show you all the stuff that's in my slides. But yeah, we did this session and it was well received. This is just my slide deck from this, so it's not everybody's slide deck. This is just the stuff that I talked about. But yeah, we did thread talks as well. But let me go ahead and pop that back down and give you the deck from. As you can see, I had a little trouble earlier getting set up. Turns out when I started back up, there was some stuff that had changed about EV Mugs, and I had to fix my layout. So apologize for the little bit of stuttering there and having to fix some stuff. But let me go ahead and get that back up for you guys. But yeah, we did the technique toolkit. So we talked about retail style stuff. It was really kind of great because we managed to really get into how to elevate your embroidery and do something that is beyond the usual. And it was really just a great time to be had. Everybody was really kind of engaged. And that's something I'm just going to make a comment on really quickly. There was just more educational engagement. The people who were there were absolutely about the education and talking to each other, talking about different techniques that were going on and sharing. So I'm not going to share everybody's content that's there, and you're not going to see a ton of this. I'm going to flip through stuff very quickly. So this is not me giving away the entire thing. If you're going to be at the Atlantic City show, you will still absolutely get more out of it. But yeah, worthwhile to check it out. We'll just kind of flip through some stuff. Yeah, I talked about value. I talked about style. What's standard? What's different? What's retail style? What makes a sense about coordinating things together? How do we get value? How do we get distinction out of people? What questions do we ask? How does effort go? And then doing live case studies, breaking things down. So yeah, you'll see a lot of stuff. There's some digitizing. There's some technique stuff. There's all sorts of case studies you can talk about how we put things together. All of that was part of what we did there. Like I said, not going to give you every slide that I talked about. I've got hundreds, but at the same time, we did get into this concept of making more out of your embroidery, and it was really, really cool. Now, don't get me wrong, that's just the stuff that I did. You now also have all of the techniques that are coming out of Katie, who led us off. She had to do another session later on in the day, so she led us off with really cool techniques, how to make fine reverse applique covered pieces on scarves and things where you want to have a covered back. She talked about making this elevated version of that stuff. She talked about different sorts of techniques and tools that you can use. I talked about specialty techniques and stitches. We had Justin going over all of the very similar stuff about the 3D foam, not on the side of the detailed technique, but he did do that at his other session. But he really got into how to elevate techniques and how to talk about coordinating pieces on hats. And of course, Joe getting deep on just everything. I mean, he was also philosophically deep, but he was talking about thread and supplies and fabrics and showing really great looks and getting everybody inspired. I think the best thing about Technique Toolkit for me is that everybody really was quite inspired. And the people who were talking to me after the fact, they seem to have kind of gotten out of their shells with getting work um, that was more retail style. And by retail style, I mean something that was not very standard, had more stitch quality, had more texture. We used materials that made sense, and that was designed to create a look or to solve a problem in a way that was not standard corporate left chest, front hat, logo slap embroidery, one logo every place, one style every place. So it was really great. Great to have everybody out of there. We also talked about retail research, and I'll just pop that up really quickly, where I discussed how to analyze pieces, how to figure out what's interesting about them, and discussed all these kind of topics surrounding that. So really cool, got people out of their shells a little bit, and I think that's something where everybody had a part in that, where we all had these different takes. So Katie coming to it with really on the ground techniques and stuff that applied, I thought, very well to especially like the gift and boutique market. We had the awesome fully retail stylings coming from Joe. And then we had the great textural stuff coming out of Justin. And then I jumped in with a lot of kind of on the ground, real marketing and design kind of commentary coming out of what I did for corporate clients in trying to elevate their work and make it something more than just the classic logo slap where everything's the same and the same texture, same sheen. So it's really kind of cool. Technique Toolkit was once again, well received, well reviewed. So that's the thing I have to say is thank you to everybody who reviewed the show, who was there and reviewed the workshops and did all of our surveys for us. I will say they want us back out. So thank you very much. That's something that they've said is they want to continue the Technique Toolkit. We've now been doing it for a couple of years and it's actually quite well reviewed. And hence, we should be seeing Technique Toolkit coming again in Atlantic City. Like I said, lineup changes a little bit. We had to do that in Texas. That's how we brought on Katie. We'll probably have somebody else joining us in Atlantic City as well, because I know Justin can't make it out there. But the thing is, I'll just say this: we are all people who come from different backgrounds. We come from different styles, techniques, different kind of verticals to some degree, and sometimes different shop sizes and goals. But everybody we've brought on has skills. Everybody we brought on cares more about teaching and bringing this to people than they care about their individual vectors that they came at this from. So having all those different opinions is great. And I think even if we aren't all fully on the same page as far as where we come from or what kind of shops we ran, or even business wise, we're coming from different directions, from different kind of corners of the world, from different companies that we've worked for. Everybody has said, let's go to this place. Let's go to this educational place where we get together, we work together, we put aside everything that isn't making sure that people get inspired and have this newfound ability to do something more than the average. And I think Technique Toolkit's been awesome for that. So yeah, just really enjoy the fact that that went so well and that people really loved it. So, and by the way, thank you very much. Cindy says it was a great workshop. Hey, great having you in there. Plus people, I'll say this, people asked excellent questions. We're going to get to that again. People asked really excellent questions. They absolutely were engaged. They were talking to each other. And that's another thing I'm going to talk about: networking. The networking was crazy at this event. People were absolutely talking to each other. And yeah, Cindy says, I like the new term. I'm not sure who among us said this first. I used to just say, my version of this is, I said, coordinate, don't replicate, which that's my phrase version of avoid the logo slap, which was that, coordinate, have something different on your hat than your shirt if the hat and shirt are meant to be worn together, and you can make a set that is interesting instead of just slapping the same logo everywhere. I believe it might have been Jeremy Picker from Amber Creative who said logo slap and kind of brought that to the forefront. But yeah, logo slap is a big one. The concept of just like you take the same logo in the same size and the same treatment, and you stick it here and you stick it here and you put it on something else and you throw it on a jacket. And if you're feeling spicy, it's on the yoke or the sleeve. Yeah, that's the logo slap. The concept of just slapping the same logo everywhere, and especially with digitizing having at least at one point been the major cost in the embroidery process. Lots of people used to do this logo slap and people still do the logo slap. I mean, don't get me wrong. there is a place for standard embroidery. It's one of the slides you saw me zipping past there. There is a place for standard embroidery and for logos to go on each thing, and it's not a lot of change. But when you want to elevate beyond that and also sell and get more value from people, pretty frequently you can get more out of having a look that stands out, that helps to differentiate, that provides some delight for the client and for the eventual viewer, which might not be your client directly. It's also who they want to see them wearing the logo, or if they are selling that product down the road. There's something to getting that for the eventual final viewer of the piece, and I think that's important too. But yeah, have a couple more comments that I'm going to grab before we go further in. Lisa said, excited for those that can attend in Atlantic City. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, I have been fielding tons of questions of why I don't do Atlantic City. Back when I was in New Mexico, primarily, it was very hard to do Atlantic City. That's one of those shows where it's massive, long, expensive flights and then renting cars and then driving out from Philly. And it's not super hard, but it's one of those things where for a smaller show where the attendance tends to be a little smaller, was hard to justify for me. Now that it's a driver, I'm about 3.5 hours out from Atlantic City. I can jump in a car and go do that myself. And that's something where I'm like, that makes it where I can finally kind of make sense of it, not cost anybody too much to get myself down there and make that work. So Atlantic City, I'm excited to do that, though. Certainly it can't beat the time I got to meet Lisa Shaw in California. So thank you, Lisa. But yeah, we also have everybody showing in. I just have to say hi to folks who are showing up as well. I love to see all you guys. Scott from Sunrise Tactical Gear, who I got to see previously at last year's Long Beach show, says, happy Friday, everyone. Happy Friday, man. Happy to have you in there. But yeah, really kind of cool stuff going on. Like I said, Technique Toolkit was great. Have to praise the work of Katie and Joe and Justin. And, I think I did a little bit of work there too. So definitely glad to see how that went for everybody. Love it. And it was just fantastic. The next session I did, and I'm just going to go ahead and call it out because this is something that I was a little surprised by, mastering embroidery for caps. So guidelines, limits, and smart workarounds is something that the show asked me to do. And I mean, I've made a ton of caps. Don't get me wrong. I have made a tremendous number of caps, but it's something that I haven't talked about as much recently. Certainly, I've talked about patch caps a lot because I love patches. We've done Patch Artist over at Embrilliance. And even Ace One, if you guys remember the one that I often wear, I'm not wearing today. I've got a lot of stuff in the wash, including my poor hats, because I was running around sweating every day on the trade show floor. Patch hats. If you remember Ace One with the kind of warped, kind of psychedelic text that we did, that's so I talked a lot about patch hats recently, but not as much about just embroidering caps. And so the impressions people were like, hey, come out of retirement talking about caps. We want you to teach that. And at first, I'll admit, I was like, you've got a lot of great cap people here who are doing tons of caps every day. You can also have them do that. I don't mind if you have Justin take that one or somebody else take that one. But like, no, we want you to do it. I've taught caps many times before, and I do know a lot of the techniques behind it. So I did a right down to business kind of nuts and bolts version of caps, including some things about patch attachment, and some of the woes of making caps. And it was kind of great. I'm going to say the thing that was nice about it, especially for me, this was really well received. And hey, that's something where you're like, okay, I haven't taught that for a minute. It's something where I see other people who are really making expansions as far as cap style, and I'm like, man, I love to see them doing that stuff too. But yeah, it was a good time, and people really enjoyed having someone go down doing the nuts and bolts technical stuff. So I'm not going to go crazy about it. Done tons of caps, including patch caps, as you can see. I'm gonna flip through a bunch of stuff and just say, you can see I was talking about designing. I was talking about how to select caps, digitizing stability, and embroidery execution. So we talked about all the different types of caps we've done. We talked about positioning. We talked about distance you view them at, limits. Once again, I like to do, even though some of them are older pieces for me, I do a little bit of case study because I like to give you actual case studies from cap problems I've solved over the years, whether there's something I've helped to consult with or something I've did myself. We talked about how caps are put together and why it causes trouble. We talked about selecting caps, dealing with stiff seams. We talked about digitizing, obviously. We've talked about isolation, sequencing. So it was a lot of technical stuff, but it's great. Just straight technique, lots of great stuff, pre-flight checks, doing patches, all the things you can imagine, how to hoop. So all of this was part of this cap setup. And like I said, nuts and bolts right down to the ground level, making sure that people have the basics they need for cap embroidery and getting them closer to that path to mastery. So that was Mastering Embroidery for Caps: Guidelines, Limits, and Smart Workarounds. And really, that is one of those things where I started out my work. My very first embroidery ever was done on structured hats. That's the first thing I've ever embroidered in my life for a machine was hats. So actually, it was really cool to kind of return to caps. Right, give me some time to talk about caps and really get into it. So very happy to do that. I am going to try. Like I said, I'm not going to cross fingers on this one. I'm going to try and do small run patches um, in Atlantic City as well. But this one is a go. We are going to do the Mastering Embroidery for Caps. That's what I've heard. I need to make sure listings are still being updated. Mastering Embroidery for Caps was really well received. I had massively decent reviews, man. I was, like I said, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if you guys just want the new avant-garde stuff where I need to bring in, Justin and have him show you his latest experiments. People wanted the on the ground nuts and bolts, and I was glad to see that. So yeah, lots of great reviews, and I super appreciate that. So thank you guys who reviewed it and who asked me to come back, because that was something I didn't expect. I was kind of saying, I know it's valuable information. I've done a lot of cat embroidery over the years, many, thousands and thousands of caps. But at the same time, sometimes you feel as someone who's been doing this for a while, you're like, man, that is not the newest, most groundbreaking thing to talk about. But what I need to remember is, just like me, there was a time where I was struggling with caps, and I could have really used the help of somebody who's just put the needle to a heck of a lot of crowns. And that is definitely something I have done. I have embroidered a lot of caps in my life, and it was nice to talk about that, to discuss that with folks, and to get people back on the right track as far as not only digitizing it and preparing for caps, but um, part of it really is also the business of recommending, working with, and understanding how we get caps to the people and make it make sense. So really cool, and that should be another one that you're going to see at Atlantic City. So hopefully, like I said, I always tell you guys, until the ink is dry and I see the listings up, I don't like to tell you everything. That one I'm pretty sure about. The patches, we will talk about that. That one is still in the discussion phase. We're still trying to lock that down. We kind of had a little bit of weirdness with the scheduling on that, but that's something we're still looking at. But I'm pretty sure we're going to see a Toolkit in some format. You won't see everybody from Toolkit, but you will see some version of Toolkit with who we can get out there. So we're going to try and fill up that workshop again. You will see also the thread talks. We're going to talk about that. So you're going to see the thread talks, and you should see me teaching caps. So that should be a thing that happens when we're out there. Like I said, these things are subject to change until when the ink is dry. So it could be that this is not something that's entirely there. I will be out there. These are what I think I'm teaching, and that's what we were taking away. The last thing that I'm going to talk about as far as the classes we taught there was thread talks. So this is super cool, right? So I'm going to show you some pictures of stuff in a second too, and kind of get everybody excited about that. Hopefully you'll see some of the fun pictures and things. But thread talks was the other big massive thing we did, right? I'm also going to show you guys some pictures of just us teaching at the classes and stuff like that, because we had both Joe and Justin were excellent about taking pictures of us while we were up there. But we also did this other session called Thread Talks, and this is the craziest thing. We did 4 big round tables where people sat at the round tables, and we as the experts, so this was once again me and Katie and Justin and Joe. So all of us went out and we toured around the tables. We switched about every 15 minutes or so. We went around the tables and we just asked questions, answered questions, and talked about embroidery directly, and fostered a ton of excellent networking and kind of interconnected discussion. So this was just awesome. It was fully round table. It was fully Q&A. There was no prepared presentation for it. It was your chance as a decorator, especially as somebody who wants to talk to people with a lot of experience under their hats, and maybe not much else. It was a chance to ask exactly what questions you want and get those answers and pick their brains. And I'm going to tell you the one thing, aside from, like I said, the networking was wild. People were, after that class, I saw people exchanging information. They were trading cards. They were discussing things. They were trading emails. They were sitting in the seats behind the tables after we wrapped up and just talking. So people were really getting together at this piece, and I'm super glad that we did the thread talks, that we did the roundtable discussions, because that was incredible. But like I said, aside from just seeing some of the other things that were going on, as far as the educational engagement, I mean, I cannot tell you how much people were prepared with questions and who were absolutely driving those home. And these were good questions. This is one of the first shows I've done in a while where I had several people ask me a question that I had never been posed before. And I know that sounds like nothing, but after teaching for this many years, I've been blogging for the industry and teaching in some form now. Actually, I realize this now. The first stuff I was doing, I think, was 2006. Was my first awards and my first blog posts I was doing. I think we're in 2006. I have been now 20 years of teaching in some format, as I was also doing the rest of what I did in my career. And this is one of the first shows I remember where there were brand new questions I had not heard. There was so much engagement at those tables, and it was absolutely fantastic. So I cannot recommend enough the thread talks. We are going to do that again. Once again, different roundup. Like I said, Justin, I know, is not going to be able to come out to Atlantic City. We'll have to fill in there possibly, or it'll just be, like I said, I know it's going to, certainly Joe is going to be there. I'm going to be there. Katie's going to be there. So we'll be doing that. I don't know if we're like who else we're getting yet or what's going on with that. It might be just us three, but the thread talks are happening again, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And I have to say, I will say it was so hard to tell you guys that Justin's not to be there because Justin was awesome. He was fantastic. Justin saying the roundtable was awesome. My voice was almost gone by the end. And I'm just going to tell you right now, Justin, just like an absolute pro. So let me throw this man his flowers right here while I have a chance to. Justin went out there, and whereas I was a little chaotic, I jumped in there and just started saying, hey, you got questions? Let's have them. And I kind of I'll admit, I let a couple of the tables get a little bit where a couple people were really hammering the questions down faster than other people. Justin went and made sure everybody was engaged. He went around the tables and asked people questions, and he was pointed and technical in his answers. Not that any of us, I think everybody did great. I saw Joe being absolutely personable, bringing people in. I saw Katie getting down to the brass tacks. So everybody did great. I think I did okay. I never know how I do. I like to think I did all right. But Justin was just, man, in there like a pro, getting stuff done, teaching us how to get it done. So thank you, Justin. That was incredible. You helped us absolutely get the roundtable engaged with everybody. So love to see that. But yeah, and Lisa was at one of the roundtables, which was awesome. She was at the table with us. As an attendee. So by the way, she could have, I teased Lisa as soon as she got in there. I'm like, you want me to set up the other table so that you can you can be the fifth, the fifth Beatle here? You want to be there and teach? Lisa was like, nope, I'm attending. I'm not doing that. But yeah, there's like she was like, oh, roundtable's incredible experience. It was super cool. People were talking with each other. The engagement was great, and like I said, the questions were fantastic. And some of it, like I said, some of them, like Cindy says, oh, what was the new question? I'm curious. I'm trying to remember exactly how the new question was phrased. Frankly, I'm just going to say this is not terrible for the person who said brand new question, but the question didn't actually end up being particularly. The one that I was thinking of when I said this was not something that particularly had a fantastic answer to it, where this was something that was super groundbreaking. It was just people were thinking about how things worked in a way they haven't been before. I was being asked, and I'm trying to remember exactly what the thing was. It was about material and the way materials affect the stitch out. But it was somebody asking something about it was like a combination of like thread color and something else, where I was like, it doesn't, the thing that they asked wasn't actually very impactful on the quality necessarily. I had to kind of reach for something. There was like thread color and something about material where I had to kind of clarify what it was. But it was a question where I'm like, I don't think anybody has ever asked me that. And there was some merit to it, because I remember somebody asking about thread color, and I think it was thread color and edge quality or density. And I was like, you know what, there has been over the years, especially cheaper threads that were re-dyed, where we actually see thickness and texture differences and thread breaks based on color. But it has not been in any of the major thread brands forever. I haven't had that in a long time. There used to be like cheap thread brands where they would re-dye bad lots to black, and the black thread would behave differently. And so I had to reach for that, but that's not where the question was. But it was something where it's like, no one has ever asked me that question. Even though the question that I was thinking about didn't pan out, it still was like, oh, wow, that's like a question nobody asked. And it happened to me more than once. I can't remember off the top of my head the other people who asked these, but I had somebody saying like, oh man, does thread color have a bearing on that? And I was like, you know what? It can, but it really probably shouldn't for you. And I had to have this whole discussion about it. But it did also kind of lead us to other questions about like, hey, what does contrast do for the look of coverage? What do needle geometries do when it comes to how edge quality turns out? How do materials interact? We were really getting into this very technical level of things where people wanted to know not just how to get the job done, but why things work the way they do. And for me, that has been the essence of trying to get people to get mastery over embroidery is if you can control the stitch, if you can understand how the thread and the needle and the fabric and the stabilizers interact and the hoop tension and the speed on the machine, if you can get to the point where you understand a synthesis of all of these factors coming together, you get a level of control and honestly a level of joy and ability out of this thing that you don't get, in my opinion, any other way. It's you guys have heard me talk about this. The Icelanders have that phrase: you want to understand something below your lower jaw instead of just understanding something up here in your head where you got a concept of it. You want to really feel it into your bones. That's what this is to me. Understanding how those things work, and more people were on that trip with me than like ever before. I think that was the coolest thing. Plus, people were just really cool with the ability to network and ask questions, and they were engaged. People were taking notes. People were taking pictures. It was incredible. So it was fantastic. It was really great. So I really do love that stuff. It was fantastic. Um, yeah, we have a couple more comments. I'm going to bring those in before I get on to the rest of my takeaways. Like I said, we're going to keep this one pretty short today. Probably just going to go an hour. I'll talk more about what's happened at the show, show you some fun pictures, and we'll get that going. But I'm going to finish this class section just so you guys can know that the thread talks, like I said, going to be back in Atlantic City. Unfortunately, we won't have the man, the myth, the legend, Justin with us, but we will try and fill in if we're going to do the longer session, or we'll see if it's just us three. We'll just rotate differently. We'll figure it out. But yeah, we should be doing that again because that was another thing highly rated for all of you guys who came out and then gave us lovely reviews. Thank you. You guys seemed to really enjoy it while you were there, and I was excited about that. So I'm glad that many of you followed through with reviews. Just to put a point on this for everybody, if you want something from your trade show, truthfully, also from your vendors, from the people who sell you things, from the companies you buy from, speak up. Speaking up is important. And when people ask you for reviews or surveys, I know sometimes it seems like a drag to get out the old QR code reader and thumb through one of those surveys. But let me tell you how much this affects what you get next time. We are going to get to do this again. And this was a brand new format. Impressions Expo has never done this kind of roundtable format before. And the talk is behind the scenes. I don't think I'm giving anything away that this was good enough that they're looking at other venues and other possibilities for other people. So that also means we might see this in the print world for those of you who are into print. We might see this in other ways because this was valuable enough to people that this made sense. And instead of just, the great thing is, like, instead of another mixer, don't get me wrong, we all love happy hour. We all love going to those things, but those often end up being fully social and not as engaged. This means more expert-led networking and educational events that are about what you want to ask directly, not just what we want to teach. And that's awesome. So I'm proud of that one. I'm very proud of that one. And Ramona was at that. So it was awesome to see Ramona and get to talk to her too. So awesome classes. Love the roundtable. Do it again. It's coming back. And that was fantastic. So it was really good. It is really good to see that stuff. And so we have Lisa also saying, which, by the way, Lisa, awesome. Lisa is also an awesome attendee, by the way. Lisa's on board. She was there doing stuff and talking to people. And it was great. So I love to see that. And engaged, by the way. So one of my favorite attendees as well, as a good friend of mine and one of my favorite educators, Lisa. She says, I was fully enjoying my attendee experience. Nice to absorb and get inspired. Same here. That's the other thing I was going to say is the roundtable for me, instead of me standing up here and everybody down here listening, we were all sitting around the table talking and we were all just getting around problems. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was answering a lot of questions, but I thought it broke down that barrier between the educator and the attendees in a way, or at least it made it a little more permeable. So it was more like, hey, let's talk shop. I'm going to tell you how I did it. Love to hear how you did it. Let's figure this out. Let's get somewhere new. And that was awesome. Really awesome stuff. And DJ Kev says, I agree. I have that control now. Talking about control of the interaction between stuff with all the techniques taught by Erich makes a world of difference. Thank you, man. That seriously, that's like gets to my heart, man. That's what I want to do here. And thank you, Justin's being overly kind here, but I'll give him that voice too. Don't be so modest. You're the OG teacher. Open the door for the rest of us. Thank you. Hey, there were OGs before me, man. I'm feeling a little like an OG these days. I got enough grade to qualify. I'm wearing the Unk label pretty well these days, but at the same time, hey, I'll take it. I'm happy that if any part of me being willing to share has made any others more willing to share and brought more people into this concept of let's put away all the competition and put away the secrets and put away the concept of hiding these things that we know to protect ourselves and open up to the rest of the world, then that is absolutely what I wanted. And the fact that I've got folks like you, Justin, and Joe, and Katie, and honestly, all the other folks we've been around, and Lisa, who was doing it before me, but just getting to be with her too, or she's an awesome sharer. And hey, also Brian, who's made him brilliance, getting to hang out with him, and he's a teacher from way back. He educated more people than I've ever seen in a classroom. Getting to be around other educators like you guys is everything to me, and especially when it comes to being in that space with all of the attendees and hearing that they got something out of it and that it made a difference. Like I said, and DJ Kev, your comment, man, seriously, right to the heart. That's how I feel about it. That's awesome. Let's look at some pictures and some fun stuff, and then we'll talk about the other takeaways from the show. So as we're kind of winding up for the day, I'm not going to go super long, I think, today. Let's talk about some of the cool stuff that was going on first. Let's just show some fun pictures. We were out at the shows. You got to see this. Here's Katie talking about her concepts, and she had some really great use cases going on. So love to see what she was talking about. And some of these are just like, oh, that's awesome. We got a little flip book version. It's Katie teaching in flip book style. That we got Justin behind camera, rocking the embroidery nerd gear. And all of us, but Katie not stopping to stop answering questions. She's still teaching, so she's working harder than the rest of us who are already smiling for the camera. We got her though. We got her eventually. And many thanks, by the way, to everybody who was helping with all this stuff, and also Joe's lovely wife who helped take pictures and helped with a lot of this stuff as well. We were all just rocking out and enjoying our time here. So we'll go past some of these, just us teaching. There is Joe doing his thing in his awesome Applique Joe jersey, by the way. Incredible stuff. Love it. And making us all look bad. Rocking out. There's some of the folks who were in the back, the toolkit. Had lots of folks there, and we're talking about these industrial looks and stuff. So awesome with the stuff Joe was teaching. We got Justin up there, and you can see Justin seriously making it happen. Oh, and once again with enough caps to make me feel like that's the guy we should have had on the cap class. But hey, I get you there. I get you there well enough. But man, looking at the caps, I'm just going to zoom in and go, this is what I do at the show. I'd be like, oh man, you're making me feel bad. I told him over and over, I'm like, dude, I got to get like you. I got to get like you, buddy. Because those are awesome caps. So you guys to see some incredible sample work from the man himself. And then, of course, yes, very serious times from Joe and Justin out in the audience, just very, very rapt attention and not at all mugging for the camera for all of us. And then, yeah, for sure, me, not surprisingly, talking with my hands. Apparently, a thing I do. Sorry, very much something I did. And then, of course, like I said, it's right there, Cindy King and myself hanging out. But like I told you, this was Joe, so I had to start mean mugging Joe. So sorry, Joe. That's just what's going to happen when you're taking the pictures. He started going like, "Give it to me, guys. Give it more with once more feeling." Right? He was messing around with the camera, so I was like, "Let's give him that mean mug. Let's give him a couple faces." And I started cracking up. I couldn't hold it, but it was pretty awesome. And of course, there's, by the way, April's there. I probably should share all the pictures. I'll zip past some of these. They're not class pictures, but Joe's lovely wife, April, was there, is helping quite a lot, and that was fantastic. But yeah, all the teaching that was going on, and Joe's classes too. I will back this off because they shared this with me. So thank you, Joe and April, for sharing your pictures with us and let me see some of that cool stuff that was there. So took some great pictures. We do have some others I'm going to show you as well from my own selections, but just want to say that was awesome. If you want to see that stuff, like I said, we're going to have a new version. So unfortunately, if you didn't get to see all of it, you won't see exactly the same list lineup, but Technique Toolkit's coming back in a slightly different form, but with a lot of the same stuff we had from Long Beach. We do have Mastering Embroidery Caps. I should be doing that one. I'm hoping, like I said, cross your fingers. Hey, ask the people if you want the smaller end patch class, because I want to teach that one again. A lot of people have been asking for me to hit that one more time. And Thread Talks, like I said, in a slightly different format, will be back at Impressions Expo in Atlantic City. So once again, check out impressionsexpo.com for that. But let's go back on to some of the other takeaways, right? So let's talk about some of the other takeaways and show you some pictures and just kind of get into other things I saw and noticed while we were there. So, other interesting things from Long Beach that I wanted to cover. Well, first and foremost, here, we did see a lot of just cool new stuff going on. And I think um, if I had a watchword for what I saw people asking me from the embroidery world, and certainly kind of what I saw in a lot of the booths, it absolutely would have to be texture. I am seeing so many people trying to add more texture to embroidery and decoration, whether that is uh, some manner of high density print, whether it's real chenille, which we saw more real chenille on the floor than usual, whether it's tufting or other processes, or we also had fringe on the floor, something that, if you're in Brilliance people, we have a very nice dedicated fringe stitch tool that a lot of you have been asking us about recently. And I'll probably have to talk a little bit more about that. We might be doing some fringe projects or something to show that, because people have been really enjoying fringe work, which is where you're doing like cut bobbin work or cut pile work on the thread that's on the surface locked down with another satin bar, which we'll talk about that another time. We're going to talk about fringe later, because texture is such a watchword that I think that's something that might be coming up from me soon too. You may see that on the Takeup soon too, because texture is just everywhere. But lots of cool stuff there. I do want to do one fun thing and just say I'm going to embarrass Lisa. There's me and Lisa hanging out. So yeah, we finally met. Like I said, we had not gotten to hang out in person, and getting to hang out with Lisa Shaw was an absolute highlight. So just to say, yes, after years of working together on projects, finally got to hang out, and absolutely well worth it. Fantastic times. So, like I said, just cool stuff, absolutely fun, great to get inspired, great to hang out with everybody. But like I said, if there was a one watchword from any of this, it absolutely would have to be texture. And yeah, Lisa says, finally met. Yeah, no, for sure. Finally, 7 years down the road, but absolutely. So yeah, fantastic. Really great to see everybody there. And by the way, I'm going to call people out. When it's your first time, I got to say, hey, Stitches 1950 says, hi, everyone. First time here in chat. Listen to watch all the time, though. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out. And yes, says, I just had a customer come to me about chenille lettering on sweatshirts. Let me tell you, chenille was super heavy. There was so much chenille going on, and chenille and texture. So let's get back to those pictures. So yeah, you're on it. Texture was like the mode of the day. Everywhere I went, there was some form of texture. Don't get me wrong, we're still rocking color. We're still showing the color reel. We're still showing all that stuff. But there was so much that was about adding texture, adding loft, adding thickness, looking at different threads. Very much, Joe's been teaching this forever. Even I've jumped on that many times with even standard embroidery, thick threads and woolly threads many times before. But people were really playing with the best things embroidery can do that print can't do. And that's what I teach that in all of my classes. Embroidery has things that it does better than any other medium, and print cannot give you. Even if you do faux digital print embroidery, which I've taught that too, none of it will give you texture, dimension, and sheen the way that embroidery can. The ability to use materials the way that we do in embroidery is unique and awesome. So let me get back to those pictures. It's worthwhile to kind of check some of these out. We'll zoom in on some of this stuff. Plus, the other thing that was super cool, we saw equipment about that. But let me just kind of show you some stuff, right? So lots of real chenille. So we're looking at chenille pieces now. This was actually at the SinSim booth. One of the other things I'm going to make a comment about is we were seeing tons of international players. And I actually even pulled that out as a banner. So just to make that clear, one of the things I saw a lot going on here were just these international players of all kinds. So there was more disruption happening in the world of what machines were being shown, what kind of materials were on the floor, who was putting up big booths and who was putting up more content and education. This does not mean the old school players that have been there forever, who are the standards in the game, are not still there or are not relevant. They're all very relevant and had new technologies. But what you found was, though the new technologies were largely centered in these, the big three, you saw Tajima and Barradin and ZSK, and also, SWF was there, all with technologies that are up to the newest level. We have electromagnetic tensioning, we have, digital pressure foot control, we have all that cool stuff happening. But we saw lots of machines on the floor from players that are more important in the international production space outside of the US, where most of our stuff actually gets made. And those players were there. And this is one of those booths. We were at the SinSim booth, and they had some real stuff going on. So interesting stuff going on as far as those players being there. And you guys know I've talked about Buy machines. They had a huge booth from Buy with Rich Word there as well, which is their materials vendors, and also, or their material line, also with a bunch of people doing other sorts of stuff. It's like we had also home machines on the floor in places you didn't expect. The Racoma booth and the Buy booth had home style single needles on the floor of the Impressions Expo. So big crossover as far also as the range of types of shops, types of production that were going on. So really very interesting stuff. Like I said, international players, lots of stuff going on. Interesting kind of networking, and also lots of production and process on the floor. So different processes, more production, and in the education, people were asking about production and processes in a way that they weren't maybe last year or as much previously. But let's get back to some of the stuff we saw. Like I said, lots of real chenille happening. Like I said, SinSim booth was showing real chenille machines. So there's your thread being hooked up from the underside, and that was a machine with two heads that was a combination traditional embroidery and chenille. And actually, I think if we see this piece again, I can zoom in on it. This one actually, yeah, this one does have some multimedia. So if you're going to see in this piece, we do have real chenille going on through the rest of this piece, through the flag. But if you look carefully, the eye and the beak, once again, with that cool overlap satin style effect, it's almost like our length limit satin stitch breaks that we do in Brilliance, in Stitch Artist, or you might say like a null stitch length that I talked about in my vintage classes. You might also get that. You can get that at Wilcom too with doing a null stitch length or a non length broken fill. Those kind of cool high sheen fills being used, and like overlap satin style looks being used with traditional chenille on, and also on a two head machine like that is both a chenille and standard embroidery machine. Not that we don't see that other times, but people were very interested in it. And certainly, having some higher, some of the maybe higher profile machines were also doing some interesting things there too. I just thought I'd show that, yeah, real chenille was there in that same booth. They had tufting, which is interesting, and this was multimedia tufting. Now this was done with a slightly different process with a machine that allows large loops, and then had like a shaving device that was being used to cut those loops. And we'll see some more of that tufting was there as well. That was also at SinSim. But the thing was, people were really stopping and engaging with this and trying to figure out how it was done and finding other options. Now, certainly, you can also go to Stalls or anybody else who's doing either patch embroidery, or they were doing three-dimensional molded kind of, PVC or other types of patches. They had lots of textured elements, lots of density and multiple height elements in different booths, but tons of stuff like that, like I've been seeing. And also, now this was just on the side of a booth. The fact that at a commercial show, I was seeing massive long loop fringe pieces regularly at a show. And I gotta say that, big props to Katie Wilbin, who taught this at the previous at the technique toolkit we did in Dallas Fort Worth area at the end of last year. She was teaching fringing, and I have to admit, I was looking at her going, man, you're teaching fringing to a commercial audience. I didn't really think cut bobbin work could be something you'd see in a commercial audience. And here we are on the floor, and I'm seeing fringing sold in multiple places and being taught. So that's how much people want texture, is they're willing to do some of the handwork that is required for fringing. Now, don't get me wrong, we also had technological solutions to that. And I've got some other fun stuff that's laying around here, but I just want to show you guys, this is the one thing that people were kind of K booths. So you guys know I have a great love of the ZSK machines. And this is a looping tool. You can see how it places this finger under the stitches, and it absolutely does create loops that have, you can set height on these. I don't have enough detail to tell you much more about it, but over here on needle one, on the side of the machine, we have a robotic hand that goes in there, and it lets the stitches loop up on top of this finger that then is removed from the stitches and allows there to be a pile. So this is from the people at ZSK. If you don't know ZSK or ZSK, if you're Canadian or English, it makes a look that's like this. And I'll kind of zoom in on it. It's not maybe perfect. There was some stuff going on the cap. I'll say that I'll go ahead and give you my professional digitizer spiel and go, yeah, your edge run's popping out here on the top, guys. You're at the top of the crown into the bubble. You might want to increase your inset on your edge run. So there's, before you guys say it, that's me. But if we look down at this piece, you can see we've got this very high looped thread. Now, this is with a standard embroidery thread. You could very much use a through thread, I think. It'd be very interesting to see what they're going to do with this long term. But they were very much getting, as you can see with this device, they were getting these real tall loops on top of a standard cap with a standard embroidery machine. So this is, off the shelf embroidery machine with an additional attachment, creating, and I'll go ahead and put the video back on one more time so you guys get a look at it. We'll screen that out. Um, Very interesting to watch the work. Drops down a centering stitch on that. Here we go, producing loops and allowing those to stay at a nice high height. So interesting to see that. Very lofty loops coming off of a standard machine. And once again, here is a nice zoomed in version of that tennis ball. You can kind of, I'll try and zoom out just a little bit. Very big shaggy loops. Can you adjust the height? Yes, I don't know enough about it to tell you more yet. So that's brand new, something that was launching from the ZSK people on the floor. So did we see other stuff that was interesting there? Absolutely. Like I said, I don't have pictures of everything we saw on the floor that was interesting. Had lots of pictures from different booths. I'm not going to show you every machine that was out there. One of the things that was interesting, like I have kind of always told you guys, is we just saw people who weren't always there. I saw home machines. I saw different brands that really aren't there. Lots of international brands putting up pretty large booths. And home machines on the floor in a way that I usually don't. So it was interesting to just kind of see who was there, what the takeaway was for everybody. But for me, I have to say these are the kind of big takeaways for me as far as both technique, what I think is going to go on in 2026, and the market that we're looking at. Uh, if you are trying to do something new, texture is it. We are absolutely seeing people doing lofting, tufting. There was a lot of lace edge applique. So it's still stuff where the stitch is the point. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. The thread, the look of thread, the way that it can look, the texture, the sheen, the look of stitching was prominent and was important. That also gets down to things like I did some retail research while I was out there and saw some interesting stuff as far as, what was going on like in the airport, in the gift shops. I do a lot of just retail research looking at what's out there, and I was seeing felts and specialty fills, and I will see if I can try and grab that real quick because I actually saw some very interesting stuff as far as that too, where we were kind of looking at some of the cool stuff that was out there. There was texture everywhere. The look of the stitch was important, and there was tons of it going on. So if I can grab, there was a couple things that I thought were interesting as far as like textural treatments. So I'll kind of grab a couple of those real quick from my Long Beach retail research real fast before I finish this up. But just, yeah, texture, man. I was just sitting in the airport looking at some of the stuff that was there. I am seeing satin-like fills. I'm seeing satin overfills. I'm seeing felt applique over knits. And I thought that was really great on this Long Beach piece. Very mid-century styling that was going on with texture. And I was seeing just tons of this stuff. Use of patches, but here we have a really classic twill patch with regular embroidery with a marrow style edge being done over Sherpa. So textural contrast. We were seeing a lot of this stuff, even when there are just like some standard embroidery pieces going on, there was lots of texture, lots of multimedia. And then of course, as I've seen many times, woven patch plus marrowed edge or embroidered edge textures as well. So tons of multimedia, tons of texture, tons of cool stuff going on, even when we're talking about things like the retail research. So texture was there, use of materials was there, multimedia was there, and massively. So something you have to take a look at. So, and okay, she was saying, let's see, we had a question here real quick. Is the blue area knit on that piece? I believe you were talking about, I think you're talking about the Long Beach piece, and they were on a knit sweatshirt here, or a knit sweater that had ribbed kind of rib knit, and then the blue portion on this is actually felt. So I'll go and bring that picture back up in case that's what I was talking about. That one here, that is actually a felt, and we'll zoom in tight on that. That is a felt area in the blue that then has um, this piece that has a pretty standard kind of horizontal fill, but with these diamond patterns on it and applique done over this really heavy knit. So yeah, felt for the kind of the texture that's going on there. But like I said, texture to applique happening all over the place. So contrast of textures and materials, contrast of threads. Were there other cool things going on? Yeah, there was color reel with some, some interesting applications there. And certainly, as I've talked about that, I will say digital tool chain still happening everywhere. I didn't show it necessarily in the pics here, but we definitely saw Melco showing off their summit stuff again. Very much making it clear that we are looking at the concept of computer control and localized control, and that digital tool chain, including what we would call on-demand print or on-demand stitch, even to a degree, where we have like digital tool chain going from orders online to barcoded order receiving in our garments and to retrieval of files. There was a lot of that going on, and that was still kind of a buzzword, where it's like, can we take orders digitally and compress the production concept into this digital tool chain that runs throughout? That was going on both certainly in print more than anything, because we have a lot of like direct to film printing, digital printing going on. But there was also a demand for that as far as printing or stitching as well. So digital tool chain is still there, on demand is still there, and certainly going on. This Stalls is absolutely selling that with their fulfill engine and their connections to places like Melco who are doing that. Certainly you saw a lot of that going on, though I am going to say that is going on at the same time as people wanting to do more texture, more hand holding, more engagement. So trying to get more education, trying to get more creative. So it's like running parallel. I've got people who are doing digital and trying to really simplify the process into this highly personalized but very digital and kind of complete fulfillment online to order, with people trying to be really creative and doing boutique style work, one-off pieces, highly decorative pieces, and retail style work that takes more design effort. So I had these things running parallel. People going like AI to digital print to box in one go, and people saying, I want to do more texture, more hand holding, more creative work, more input from my creativity and problem solving in order to increase the value of my pieces. Those two lines were perfectly available to everybody and pretty interesting. So yeah, very, very cool stuff on both sides of that. But for me, of course, I'm a little more in the boutique side. I'm a little more in the creative side. The digital stuff is cool. There's ways to do it. I have done a lot of company store stuff, so we can always talk about that too. I find that company stores and personalization uniforming has always been on the kind of on-demand side, and really, to me, that's not new. Um, some of the tool chain is new. To me, the process of single head fleets and decorating on demand for someone doing e-commerce and embroidery and doing company stores is not a really new concept to me. I didn't find that to be evolutionary or revolutionary. Or I didn't find it to be revolutionary. I found it to be evolutionary. Little steps to make it better, not a revolution where it's a brand new thing is being done that's never been done before, at least to my eye. I didn't see that in the embroidery world being something we've never done. It's more like something that we have been doing, and now they're getting us closer to what the print folks do as far as information control and management of both files and assets, and honestly, garments through production, through shipping, in a way that's a little more automated and easy to handle, and takes away some of the individual labor that has to be done by folks on the ground as far as production. So interesting there. But other stuff that I saw that I just think is absolutely interesting, like I said earlier, man, just networking, people talking to each other, people making the case for building your team of influence around you and the people who you want to talk to, and getting past competition, past business problems in order to talk to each other on a level of how do we create and make this better. That was cool. Lots of people doing that. Far fewer secrets, far more collaborations. That was cool to see. More production process, people talking about the finer points of production, the finer points of material interaction, the finer points of standard operating procedures that make decoration go well every time. Love to see that. That is that getting down to the essentials of controlling the stitch. Fantastic stuff there. International players, hard to ignore the disruption there, guys. Um, I'm watching the used machine market where I used to see prices stay pretty high. Prices are going down in some places because even with kind of the top three, top four machine brands that we know in the US, the pressure from the slightly less technical but certainly equally capable machines, as far as you're seeing like an older machine from the big three, from the Tajimas and Baradins and those older machines in that category, stacked against new machines from these international players like, Buy and Smart Stitch. And like I said, I haven't run them a bunch. I know people who have and have had fine times with them. They remind me of machines that I used to run because they are much more manual in their orientation, but they have a newer head unit and interface. So screens, head units, interface, file operations that are much more like a modern machine, but old school tension wheels, old school production as far as everything in the drivetrain, in the thread path. That stuff is more like what I was used to running and what a lot of people are still running, depending on the machine they have, instead of having like electromagnetic tensioners, all of that. But that means there's this class of machines at a much lower entry point that is now kind of making also the used market for the big three or the producers of machines that we know have to be in the mix, where it's like you're looking at value of, let's say, an older Tajima machine, and then you're looking at a brand new Buy machine, and people are comparing those in a way which may or may not be fair. I don't know what to say, especially because I haven't run a Buy machine for 10 years the way I ran Tajima machines forever. But they're looking at those values, and that's causing some disruption in both the used market and people who are deciding on expansion, especially in the prosumer, third bedroom, garage shop, uh, boutique shop kind of space. And especially I'm seeing that also kind of in a rural or in spaces where we have smaller shops with a smaller boutique venues and or markets that they're serving. They're really making decisions between some of these international players in as far as the machine manufacturers and materials, and the people that we're used to buying things from in our kind of embroidery world. You can't ignore that. I'm not saying this is one to one. This is not apples to apples. This is apples to oranges. The machines are not the same. A brand new machine off the line from any of the big players is not the same as a brand new machine from one of these international players. Absolutely not. Technology is not the same. However, can you make meaningful embroidery on those? So far, the answer seems to be yes from the people who are running them. It's definitely mixing things up and it's causing some churn where people have to think about that stuff. I saw more in booth education. Lots of people are getting into education and in general, more educational engagement across the board. People were asking questions, people were in all the classes. Classes had high attendance. And I'm going to say this, and thank you very much for the people who valued what we were doing out there. Great reception. People were happy. I could not walk anywhere without being asked questions. I had lots of times where I had individual questions coming out of the booth. And if I haven't answered emails from you guys since I've gotten back, remember that I did the rest of my grand tour of the Southwest. I'm just getting back to actual, working on stuff today and yesterday. I've just started getting back to my email pile. You will hear more from me, but the reception was great. The ratings were great. We all do get ratings and commentary from you guys if you answer any of those surveys. So we had great ratings, great surveys. I'm sure there's always somebody who you don't reach or somebody who doesn't want what you're given, but we were getting a lot of great feedback. And by the way, valuable feedback as well. People actually asking for the things they wanted, telling us what was good and what they would like to see improved. And in general, just great reception of all the classes and things that were going on as far as what was going on in the class and education sessions. And also in general, like I said, great reception of the show. People were jazzed. They were excited. There were people who were investing. There was a lot going on. And honestly, the other thing that was interesting to me, lots of folks who were, like I said, in production and process, who had inherited mid-sized to large-sized shops, who were trying to refine what they were doing and were absolutely engaged with education and talking to me at high levels. So cool to see that, because I love a mix. I love to be with beginners. Are awesome. They are energetic. They have stuff they want to do. They're still fully in the belief that what we do is something cool. Love to be around beginners a lot, but it was cool to also see a mix of people, even if they weren't, there was people who weren't beginners and there were people who were beginners, but were on this higher level of understanding or of a desire for understanding that I really enjoyed as someone who's both technical and into production. So very, very cool. And like I said, there was lots of people getting different things done and solving their pain points and getting engaged. So before I finish out for the day, we're going to go ahead and let that be it. I do want to remind you guys, um, we are going to be talking more about this next week. We're going to have a reunion of the roundtables. We're going to invite everybody who's at the roundtables to come on, ask more questions. You guys can also do the Q&A with us. I will be releasing more of that information soon. I didn't get a chance to send out invitations yet for that, but it will be happening. So that's next week on the Takeup. There may be some other content in between there. We will see. If not there, we'll talk about it. I'll make sure that it gets into the feeds, both for my social feeds and the show. But the other thing is, remember, if you want to see us in person, it won't be all of us the same. Like I said, Justin unfortunately won't be there, but it will be the rest of us who were there at the Technique Toolkit and stuff. We are planning on doing Impressions Expo Atlantic City. That is at the end of March. I'm going to make sure and give you the dates because I forgot to write those on here. Sorry, guys. So I'm going to look those up and make sure I do it correctly because that's something I forgot to put on the screen for you guys. But yeah, Atlantic City Impressions Expo. You can get all the information at impressionsexpo.com, but I'm going to get that for you right now and make sure that you understand where our times are for that. Like I said, we are inking the final deals for that. So it should be coming up very shortly. And like I said, the Atlantic City show is 25th through the 28th. But remember, one day earlier than that, 24th, I believe, is on workshop day. So you should remember that if you want to come out for that, that is something where the workshop day is a day earlier. So impressionsexpo.com. I'm over here at the Atlantic City portion of it. And you can see 25th through the 28th. But if you go to, like I said, if we're on the conference schedule, which is all the educational stuff, I just want to make it clear that, yeah, we are there on, no, it is 25th. They actually put it in there. Previously, they'd always show the workshop day. So workshop day is the 25th. Remember that that's not when the show floor is open, but you're going to see, like I said, Technique Toolkit's already there. They are starting to put those up. We haven't got, like I said, we may be filling in with one more person on Toolkit if they're doing the longer version. We will see how that turns out. But we are still doing that stuff. Katie's coming in with her pricing and profitability again. And you're going to see from all of us, you'll see me now there. I am listed and I've got other sessions right now. All I've got is Toolkit. I've got Mastering Embroidery for Caps and Thread Talks. There may be one more session there. I'm efforting the patch session if we want to get it done. But if nothing else, you will be able to see me for those sessions as well. Let me dismiss the cookies here. But yeah, you will see Impressions Expo Atlantic City is going on. It should be cool. We are doing it at the end of March. So get out there, check it out. It is the 25th through the 28th. But the 26th through the 28th is the expo. That's where the actual show floor is open. And if you want to see more about the events, about the pricing, about the show, it's all here. I will try and get codes for you guys and release those. If I get codes for any discounts or anything, I will let you know. I don't have those yet, but I should have some of those soon. And you will be hearing more about that from me. But conference schedule is up and we do have some of those initially inked. So that tells you they are intending to have us out. That's always good. These things may change a little bit before we're done. But like I said, guys, thank you for being here. I'm happy to say that this was a really great entry to the 2026 season. And I just want to make sure you guys kind of have a concept of what's going on out there, what is coming to your neck of the woods. And like I said, if you are in any part of the embroidery world, think texture. And let's talk about what that means. Texture is a big deal. And what can you do with your embroidery? This is the biggest question I have everybody ask. What can you do with embroidery that embroidery does best and that other media are not going to give? Whatever you can do in that space is going to make whatever you make, whether you're in the creative part of this is for a hobby for you, or you're commercial like I have been, that is going to increase the value of what you do and also just make the best showing of what embroidery does best. What can you do with thread, with materials that is unique to this medium that makes it the most valuable? And that's something we should all answer for ourselves. And I think texture is coming out to being like the thing to look at this year. We're not just reproducing logos. We're not just trying to fill space with color. We're making texture happen. We are using thread at its best. We are using thread not only in its own sheen, in its own style, but we are using contrast and stitch angles and stitch types and material types to create something that is not only sublime in and of itself, but that only can be done by embroidery. Get out there, make something cool, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about this again next week.